Alrighty, good evening. We're running a couple minutes late, I guess, aren't we? Does that clock work now? Nice. It's 5:33, December 7th, 2021. We're going to kick off the ACT committee meeting with myself, Nick Allen, Mike Stefano, and Lisa Dorsey. Department head here is Bill Mann. Yeah, I already said it's 5:33. Cool. Number 2, comments, suggestions, petition by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda. Cool. Seeing none, we will move right on then to number 3, which is the proposed ordinance for the Home Rule Charter Amendment.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to just reiterate what the charge was from council and what we talked to our solicitor about. There are two things that council's asked the solicitor to look at, and one of them is pretty simple, and that is the idea that we amend the home rule charter to state that an elected official, whether it's mayor or borough council member, cannot hold two elected offices at the same time. That's a pretty easy amendment to write, and I wasn't sure from the discussions in November where council was going to come down on that issue because I didn't see unanimity of opinion. I don't know if people's opinion have changed on that matter, but that's one of the things we were asked to do, and that's easy to figure out. I think all council needs to do is discuss amongst itself or call the vote on that one and see where people fall. The second one is a little more complex, and that is how the basic idea is that should a vacancy occur on council or in the mayor's office, it's council's desire for that position to be filled on a temporary basis by appointment. However, at the next opportunity for the electors to select someone to fill that remaining term, that the electors do that. And that election process include circulation of petitions, a primary, and a general election. Where things stand right now is I sent that information to our attorney in the solicitor's office, and he looked up the state election code and is continuing to research it. He doesn't have an ordinance amendment drafted yet, but he's looking into the difference between a special election versus a municipal election as it's defined in the state election code. A special election, as defined therein, is one where the candidates are nominated by the parties. So to that extent, it didn't sound congruent with what council was looking for. So council was looking for an electoral process that was entirely in the hands of the electors. And there is some information in the election code that says those municipal elections occur on odd numbered years, not even number years. So we need to figure out a way to make sure this scenario can play out both in odd and even number years, because that's what we want to have happen. And that's where I left off with Tom Estey from Buckley Brion on Thursday after following up with him. So that was Thursday, December 2nd. I don't think this is a difficult problem to solve or to draft. We just need a little more time to do it.
So I'm not sure where we are on. I think of it as Part A and Part B. Part A being the two offices at once, and Part B being the part that's hard to say succinctly. So it sounds like we might need to push this into the new year, or is it something that potentially could be ready by work session? No? Oh.
goes. Now mine's working.
Yeah, I think I'm live. Okay, good, thank you. Sorry, what was the question? Yeah, I can talk to him tomorrow if, I don't think there's any added direction I need from the committee unless I misstated anything that seems out of line with what you wanted.
So I guess what would make sense is, are we comfortable just bringing this to work session in the event that it's ready? And if it's not, like, I'm fine with waiting until January. It's fine by me, whenever it would be.
I don't, I think it sounded, from what I remember, full council was supportive of the B part.
Yeah.
100%. Right. So the special election, or maybe not special election, whatever we're to call it, that seemed like it was a kind of, let's move forward with that. So if that was ready by next week, I think we could bring it to full council. The A part, I mean, like Sean said, it's kind of easy to just determine whether the council would be in favor of that or not. So I guess maybe as a committee, we could decide that maybe like have some direction tonight to bring to council for next week. Right? Does that make sense? Or do you want to wait to have those, when we make these changes, should it be like at one time if we're going to go forward with both of them?
Yeah, absolutely, because the home rule charter amendment process is a little more complicated.
And I could also imagine a world where somebody's view on A would be impacted by whether or not B happens, I guess.
So I was just going to say that I think if we have B ready, then we can go ahead next week with both of those. But I think we need to handle them separately. Just as a council, handle them separately. Do we want to go forward with both of them? And then if we do, they take place together. But I think we need to get that maybe sorted out here first and then through full council. Oh, now I'm good. This one's working again. I'm going to just keep it on.
So A being you can't hold more than elected off time.
Yeah.
I think it was Mr. Gates, another council member. Said that, I mean, we're talking about mayor, right? That's the experience that we have. It could be one of us, right? And holding this office and, in a constable school board. And the perception is that you cannot adequately serve in both positions. Is that the presumption?
That's the argument.
If my take on that is if the people who are electing somebody decide, hey, we know you're in office already, but we're going to elect you to another position, they have that knowledge. It's not like it's hidden. So I think if they're entrusting that person with both, and that's the way it should be. I don't want to downplay the mayoral's position, but the mayor is, besides running the police department, I think they put it up the rest of the duties of the mayor on a pedestal. I think somebody could do both of those things, depending on the other position, obviously.
So in that instance, amend the home rule charter? The amendment would be prohibited, correct?
The way I see this going, and I think before I put the cart before the horse, I think my recommendation would be that we not talk about A, the two offices at once until B is ready, and that we would look at the two things separately as two separate issues on council. And I could definitely see a world, and I think even it's most likely I could see that what we're calling Part B is something that council would approve, and based on our meeting last month, it sounds like A would not be approved. I'm sure opinions will change, but that's something that could happen. So it would still be possible to have two offices at once, but it would all, like, still going through with Part B procedural issues that exist now if someone were to resign in January of the third year of their term. So we would still fix that issue, but we wouldn't force anyone to resign if that scenario plays out. Yeah, come on up.
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. A previous version I'd seen said any elected office. It did not state publicly elected office as the conflict. If you were elected to a fire department office, it would exclude you from being on either.
Yeah, I don't think that was ever the intent. So that's an area where I probably could have been more precise with my language. I was just thinking publicly elected, yeah. So are we okay with putting this on work session if B is ready? And if not, we'll just table it another month?
That makes sense.
Cool. All right, then that's what we'll do. Any other comments? Awesome. Item number 4 is just to update the single-use plastic regulations.
It's on the website. Good evening, everyone. We're about 3 weeks away from enforcement of our single-use waste ordinance. So we just wanted to give everyone a quick update to let you know that we're working on outreach efforts to businesses and the community so that no one's caught off guard. And so just a reminder how we got here. Borough Council in June set January 1 enforcement date. Since then, we've created some new electronic and print materials, 2-page info sheet, a FAQ document, which is 2-page, it's almost 2 pages, but it kind of grows by the week. Completely new website revamped with all these materials, text of the ordinance, the materials listed above, the exemption request form, which no one's filled out yet, but there's a process for exemptions which go to the sustainability committee. Door-to-door business outreach. The bid has been a fantastic ally in getting the word out about this. I've been doing door-to-door. We actually have, there's like 55 retail and food establishments in the borough that are outside of the bid. I would have said a dozen. And I've lived here for 11 years. So it's kind of an interesting process to find them all and get information out to them. We did a virtual town hall with the bid, and we've been doing, obviously, electronic communications, website, social media, which is more targeted towards residents and visitors of the policy. So enforcement, the process is, as the ordinance states, the enforcement, if anyone's found to be out of compliance, then by the terms of the ordinance, it starts with a written warning, and then you proceed to fines for second, third, fourth, whatever violations within a calendar year of the first warning. I would say that before we're even out there writing letters and doing that unpleasant work, I'm going to go in and have a conversation, and it will be me conducting this enforcement. Before we get to that point, we're going to go in and have a conversation. We're not going to be out scouting out restaurants and retailers to make sure they're compliant. I'm guessing it's going to be more so complaint driven. Receive complaints from the community, then we'll have to, but it's going to be a soft approach, especially starting off the new year.
Sounds great to me. Questions?
Well, I know there was a memo sent to council from the bid, and then John, I'd say John O'Brien's here. I feel like that warrants some discussion tonight. Does that make sense? Or yeah. So the memo, the gist of the memo, and I guess John, if you want to speak to it, the gist of the memo was that the bid is recommending or requesting that we take out the 10-cent fee, or the language for the 10-cent fee. Sorry, that instead of saying must charge 10 cents, say may charge cents. Is that correct, John?
Yes, so John O'Brien, Executive Director, Westchester Business Improvement District. So first I want to state that like the bid fully supports the underlying premise of the ordinance, which is to transition away from single-use plastic bags and single-use straws. And we've been working, hand in hand with Will and the Sustainability Committee to make sure our, whether it's retail, restaurant, or the other businesses that are in the bid are fully aware of not only the reasons why, but how to be in compliance. And Will kind of listed some of the stuff we've done. We've, literally taken the FAQ document and walked in and put it in people's hands. But one thing that we have constantly heard has been the concern about the 10-cent fee, and for a myriad of different reasons. For one, Westchester, while maybe not being unique in the nation, would be unique in our area in this charge. For instance, Philadelphia does not charge the 10-cent fee, and I know that's another municipality that the borough has worked with in pushing for this ordinance. For a large corporation like a Rite Aid, an Acme, a Giant, a 7-Eleven, this isn't a big concern for them. But for smaller systems that have their own point of sales, it creates a bit of confusion. It creates issues for the employee education. For instance, on a restaurant, if you order from DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, the apps currently will not charge 10 cents, even though your food is most likely going to be packaged somehow. And even if they were to charge, they really are not able to understand how many bags a particular order will take. So automatically there, the restaurant is out of compliance. And the solution can't really be just, well, we'll just ignore that. There needs to be an even-handed enforcement amongst the various ways we're implementing this. Another issue can be that, say, twice that I forgot to charge somebody for a paper bag. I forgot to hit that button. So there's 2 receipts. I get 2 complaints. It's my second complaint. So now I'm getting fined a couple $100s. Well, I could have a neighbor that never does that, but they just never had a complaint issued against them. So then they're getting the kind of freedom to just go ahead and do this. And I think the other big thing is part of when we talk about encouraging folks to use reusable bags, the bid does support that. For instance, for Small Business Weekend, we bought 4,000 reusable bags and we distributed them to all our retail stores to encourage that. But if you're a customer that's just, you came to town to eat, you happen upon a retail store, something caught your eye, you're coming in, you don't really have the option of having a reusable bag. I mean, most of us, I would venture to say, don't carry reusable bags on our person. We might have them in our car, we might use them at the grocery store, but when we're just a casual shopper that it's not a planned event, we're not going to have that reusable bag. And as we all know, in Westchester, you're not probably right next to your car when you're making a sale. So that creates another difficulty for this. As I've heard from a lot of different businesses, one of the main reasons for including this was obviously plastic is a lot cheaper than paper. So to help the business owners transition, this 10-cent fee, which they keep, allows them to kind of make up that difference. There are a lot of our businesses that already use paper bags. Phineas Gage, Tish Boutique, Carlino's, there's a whole list of them. And I've gotten a lot of questions. Well, I already use paper bags. Do I have to charge? The answer is yes. So the idea of whether or not it helps them to recoup their costs, they would prefer not to have to engage in a conversation every time they ring somebody up and say, do you want a paper bag? Okay, well, it's going to be 10 cents. Well, why is it 10 cents? Well, the borough has this ordinance, and just kind of go on and on about it. So I think the simpler thing to do would be on page 6 of the ordinance, 81-5 subsection A, where it says they shall charge a fee in the amount of 10 cents per compliant bag. If we simply said they may charge a fee in the amount of 10 cents per compliant bag. So obviously this is already the ordinance. So our ask would be that council consider scheduling a public hearing so that the ordinance could be altered to allow this minor change.
Great, thank you. So just to be clear, everyone is still doing paper bags and they are allowed to charge the 10 cents if that fits their business model. if not, it's like Carlino's, like Taco Mar, they can just keep doing what they're doing.
Correct. And we're not asking for a change on the definition within the ordinance of a paper bag, which has to be, and Will would know this a little better than I do, the certain, whether it's compostable or how much of it has to be recyclable material. We're not asking for a change on that. We're just simply asking to eliminate the confusion of the 10-cent fee.
All right, cool. I think that makes a lot of sense. What do you think, Ms. Dorsey?
I agree. It does make sense, and I can understand how that would create a lot of confusion, not only for the business, but for the patron as well.
I think I had reached out to John earlier today, and I asked him, could he have a business owner, maybe like a restaurant business owner, especially because of the Grubhub thing, just kind of walk us through what that process would look like on their end to have to charge that 10-cent fee, just to give us a better understanding. It was really short notice, so I doubt anybody was going to come tonight. But if next week we'd have just somebody like, just kind of give us an idea of that, I think it would really help us understand and make a better decision, and help me make a better decision to decide whether to
Yeah,
wanna move
I
forward
can
to-
absolutely not only get, a business, but probably on the restaurant and the retail side, but I also can get some written comments for you to be submitted ahead of time. That'll probably be a little more voluminous, so we can get more input for you on that, if that helps the decision making.
Definitely help. Yeah, thank you.
And is that something, Will, you'd be comfortable, like, I don't want to call it selective enforcement, but would you be okay, like, until the ordinance is passed, because there's a lot of hoops to jump through for that?
Yep.
Like, would you be okay with not enforcing the part about charging and just
Sure.
keep the pedal down on everything else?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but I think let's pause a little bit here. To take the fee out of the ordinance guts the ordinance. If you remove the fee, then all we're doing is switching to paper bags, which, depending on whatever environmental metric you're looking at, could be worse than plastic bags. It's certainly less of a litter problem, but again, if you're looking at water usage, life cycle greenhouse gas emissions, you may be pushing the community towards a less environmentally friendly option. This policy, everywhere it's been rolled out, has failed without a fee. The fee is the crux of the issue. If you have a fee in place, you have a 30 to 40% reduction in overall use of these materials. This ordinance focuses on plastic, but it's ultimately about waste reduction in our community. So again, to remove the fee, you end up with a really gutless policy. The fee's not popular. It's the unpopular part, right? We can all wrap our heads around not using a plastic bag, but yeah, to be charged for it, that's nobody wants to pay for something that they're getting for free, right? But again, it's about behavioral change, and that behavioral change in communities takes little things like this to push and prod the community along to a more sustainable future. It also makes the policy anti-waste versus anti-plastic, which I think is important. We're not picking on a specific material, we're picking on wasteful practices in general. It's something everyone can get behind. I've had the same conversations with businesses about this issue. It comes down to really predicting the number of bags for a takeout order. That information is, well, first of all, delivery is exempted. And retail is obviously easy enough. It happens at the point of sale. Adding a bag on a point of sale system is incredibly easy. It's like we added a convenience fee for credit card usage here. It took IT 15 minutes to do so, and 30 seconds of training with our employees. So I don't agree that it's burdensome to administer. But yeah, it really comes down to predicting the number of bags on a takeout order. I appreciate the thought that businesses want to have 100% clear guidance on how to be compliant. Everyone that I spoke to, when I said, it's a tricky one and we're never going to be able to enforce that, I can't tell you how quickly they get off the phone with me. They're interested in simply not being hassled over the issue. I don't have a stake here. My goal is to implement what Borough Council decides, but I was tasked with researching and putting this ordinance together. And like I said in the beginning, without the fee, it's kind of a silly ordinance to have, frankly. But I'm sorry, process-wise, I think if we want to consider revisions, and I've been very clear that we expect to revise policy over time. I think that process would originate by referring a question to the Sustainability Committee for their input and seeing if we could craft a response that fits everyone's needs. I think if council wanted to solve the issue that isn't addressed in the ordinance, it would simply be exempting delivery. That gets rid of the issue that I've heard of from the business community.
Yeah, that was really going to be my next question is how do we get around that issue? So you think exempting delivery would do that?
Again, I'm sorry, exempting takeout. Yeah, delivery it is already exempted because of the point of sale issue, and retail is really easy. You get a bag at the checkout, get 10 cents added on if you don't have one. The other thing about the fee is it's 10 cents. It might be annoying, but what's the average price of a transaction at one of our retailers in the borough? I mean, even at 7-Eleven, it's probably $7, $8, $9, $10. So you're talking about 1% of the transaction cost. But yeah, the ordinance does not, in my mind, clarify how takeout should be handled. And I totally agree. It could create a lot of headaches when you're trying to do a fast-paced business and you're like, oh, you paid for this already, but we thought we need one bag, but you're taking two, and we got to charge you a dime, and you're trying to leave with your food. Like, no one wants to be in that scenario. So the simple fix would be exempting takeout, the fee for takeout, and then that solves 99% of the concerns I've heard.
And is there any, like in your mind, is there any logic behind the idea of just saying any transaction that involves bags, period, is 10 cents, regardless of number?
Yeah.
Because then you can just apply that across the board?
Yeah. One of the businesses I talked to about the takeout, I said, well, why don't you default to one? And, if you need two, then, you're still complying, you're still charging for paper, but the only non-compliant thing is the number. I mean, yeah, that would be easy. That has been my suggestion for businesses that I've talked to about. Again, it's the number of bags. They can't anticipate it. The apps can't figure it out. So just default to one. That's an easy.
So in if I went to even a retail store and I ended up needing 2 paper bags, we could just call it, there's a paper bag fee and it's 10 cents.
Yeah.
Regardless of the number. Like that would still keep the vision intact.
Yeah.
And would solve
Yeah,
other problems.
and cover the added cost. The added cost is not a dime. It's like 2 or 3 cents. So yeah, you would still be covering added costs for businesses, which I think is an important nod to make it business friendly.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Mr. O'Brien, do you have any sense of how the bid would feel about just doing a uniform, we've used a bag fee, regardless of the number?
I do. I think the bid would be opposed to that. And I think part of this is about a transparency with the public for the purpose of the ordinance. When Mr. Williams talks about, getting away from paper bags in general and the environmental impacts of the paper bags. I mean, throughout this time, the conversation publicly from when the school first brought this to council's attention in 2019 has been to transition away from plastic bags and transition away from plastic straws. So the conversation has always been, well, this 10-cent fee has been included because we want to help businesses transition away by covering their costs. That's why they keep it themselves. So I think this, we have to look at it through the lens that it was originally crafted and what was talked about not only to the businesses, but to the public. And that was that this fee was specifically to help transition and save their costs. You know, I think if we look, there's reasons where, you know, the city of Philadelphia didn't pursue this. There's reasons that West Goshen Township is currently not pursuing a fee as part of it. And therefore, some of the myriad of reasons that I outlined here. You know, it also creates an annoyance for the customer because at the end of the day, 10 cents is not going to break the bank, but it's just another thing that you see on the receipt. Be like, just getting nickel and dimed here, like when I come to Westchester, and it just creates a bad taste in your mouth. I think this borough has been very responsible when it comes to the environment. I think the businesses want to partner with that. And I think we need to make sure that what we are implementing works effectively. And if the true goal of this ordinance, which has always been what's publicly stated, to get away from plastic bags and straws, changing this one from a may or shall to a may, I don't think will gut the provision. If council wants to have a discussion on, should we ban all paper bags? Is that terrible for the environment and we shouldn't get away from that? Then we can have that conversation. But I think that if that's the goal, that should be a separate conversation so that only the businesses, but the public can understand that properly.
Okay, and then I guess a follow-up question for you, Will, would be how has the 10-cent charge that's been in there since the inception of this program?
Yeah. And it's always been about, it's always been in there as, it's always been two things. One, additional costs. Two, to prevent this ordinance from becoming a swap to another unsustainable behavior. That has always been part of the reasoning.
Okay, and then procedurally, is this something that we are making a recommendation for next week to take action on this, or is this the kind of thing it
I
just?
don't think we have to. There's nothing been, we got the memo from BID, but there was nothing on the agenda specifically for this. So I feel like it's something we could, if they wanted to come next week and present it to council, just so they were all aware and get an idea, maybe even a straw vote from council. I think that would be, that would probably be appropriate. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that. So yeah, I got it. Yeah. If my viewpoint, I'm a little torn. I think I hear where the BID and the businesses are coming from. As somebody who's worked in the service industry, I could see that being a bit cumbersome on their end. But I also see, you know, we're kind of trotting along here on our climate change, you know, as a society. And I feel like we're just slowly, it's time to just rip the Band-Aid off. It's time to do things and make a difference. And I think if we keep just slowly doing things, it's already too little too late, you know, so I'm kind of in between.
Interested, Mr. O'Brien, if what appears to be a compromise of, you know, just a flat 10-cent fee, whether you have 1 bag, 2 bags, 3 bags, has that been proposed to businesses, and what has been their feedback on just the flat fee?
That has not been proposed. I think it would be at least a better to, you know, compromise. I mean, our stated position is going to remain to change that to a shall provision there. And, you know, in our minds, I think council could then debate the future of paper bags if that's where they wanted to go. You know, it is always easier, I think, to get people on board with honey, you know, catch more bees with honey than vinegar. And so the businesses want to be part of this effort to help not only borough, but the environment at large. That's why a lot of them participate in the sustainable storefront program that the borough has. So that could be a possible point. I think, though, at the end of the day, I would still venture to say leaving the 10 cents really just creates more of an annoyance, but habits aren't going to be changed. I think paper bags will still be utilized, and we won't have moved the ball forward on environmental, you know, sustainability any further, but we'll have created negative effects within the public perception of Westchester. If it was such a critically important piece to implement a proper plastic bag and straw ordinance, then places like the city of Philadelphia, which makes a strong stand for, their activism on the environment, would have implemented it. Then there would be that strong case for it. But I think there's reasons why they did not, and I think Westchester should kind of take an examination of that.
And I just wonder, and I think I heard Mr. Wilson say that statistically, without the fee, there's really no impact. So I wonder if there's any data that supports one or the other. Right? So I heard Will say clearly, without the fee, it's sort of a moot point, right?
Yeah,
That there's
you're
no
switching-
value, right?
Yeah, you're switching to
And
another single-use item.
I just wonder if the other side of the discussion has data that sort of counters that.
Interesting.
Do you have that, Mr. O'Brien? Are you aware of any data that would say, without the fee, we're still having an impact on the environment?
That it would have an adverse impact on the environment?
No, so if we don't have the fee, we're still accomplishing the goal of the ordinance.
Well, the goal of the ordinance, in my understanding, is to get rid of single-use plastic bags and straws. So if a business is using them, they're still going to be subject to the fine process outlined in the ordinance without the fee. So the fee really is about, and that needs to be an understanding, is the fee there to help a business get away from using plastic, or is a fee there to get rid of paper bags? That needs to be the kind of understanding, because if the goal is to get rid of the plastic bags, from our perspective, it's hard to understand why the fee is necessary to do that. Because if I'm a store owner that has a plastic bag, or I'm giving plastic straws out, I'm still subject to, that's a very noticeable thing. I'm still very, subject to the fines and penalties outlined in the ordinance as it currently exists. So that's kind of our looking at that.
Right, I appreciate that. And I think we all understand what the debate is here for next week. And I think it would be good if you had numbers like that to bring next week to see. And I appreciate the numbers you've already brought about this. And I do think, as the ordinance is written now, if we were to change it to the idea of a 10-cent, however many bags you use, charge, that already would be a form of compromise, so. Okay. Sure. Okay, great. Yeah. All right, well, that sounds good. I think we all know what we need to know in order to talk about this constructively next week. Are there any other comments about this? I know we're kind of bleeding into the next meeting here. So item number 5 is to approve the November minutes.
Look good.
I didn't have any issues. Good. Any other comments? Any other business today? All right, that's the longest one we've had in a while. We'll adjourn at 6:12. Thank you.